It was March 2023 in Jerusalem, a truly ancient city, a convergence point for three major faiths, where every stone supposedly holds a secret. But the real shocker happened not in a dig site, but inside a simple family home in the Talpiot neighborhood. It involved a 4-year-old named David Goldstein. David woke up from a deep sleep and spoke his first words of the day. They weren't the common phrases you'd expect in Hebrew, Arabic, or English. They were words that should be completely obsolete in the mouth of a 21st century child. Abba Shpaktin Kubain, Father, forgive our debts. His mother Sarah was instantly alert. Her heart pounded. She recognized those words from some deep, distant corner of her memory, yet it was impossible. Her 4-year-old son had just spoken in Aramaic, the language spoken by Jesus 2 millennia ago. This story, the narrator claimed, was the most impossible one ever documented in the modern era. It was said to have baffled linguists from 3 universities, renowned archaeologists, and ancient manuscript experts. It was the journey of an ordinary Jerusalem family, uncovering something that might permanently alter our understanding of reincarnation, ancestral memory, and the core mysteries of Christian faith. The original source insisted that the ensuing 30 minutes of footage were not fiction. Every word, discovery, and recording had been documented and verified by globally respected academic institutions. The promise was that the David Goldstein case wasn't just about a child speaking a dead language. It was about a prophecy that was finally coming true. The kitchen incident, the whole thing truly started 3 months earlier, in December 2022. Up until then, David was a perfectly standard 4-year-old. His vocabulary consisted of the usual 200 basic words. Mom, Dad, hungry, want to play. But on December 15th, everything changed forever. David was playing in the kitchen while Sarah was making lunch. He tried to reach a glass on the table, lost his footing, and fell hard. His head hit the marble edge of the countertop with a sickening, terrifying thud. Sarah rushed over. David was out cold, bleeding from a cut on his right temple. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes. At Hadassah Hospital, doctors diagnosed a severe concussion, but no apparent permanent damage. David remained unconscious for 18 hours. When he finally woke, his first words weren't "Mom" or a complaint of pain. What came out was a complete phrase in a language nobody in his family had ever heard. Abad Bishmaya, Net Kadish Nak, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Sarah felt a wave of chills. The words were familiar, yet impossibly strange. Dr. Moshe Rosen, the neurologist present, later confessed that in 25 years, he'd never seen a case like it. It was as if the child had woken up with a memory that was not his own, challenging the linguists. This was only the beginning. Sarah Goldstein couldn't sleep. Her son's words echoed in her mind constantly. For 3 days, David continued speaking this strange tongue, mixing it with his usual childhood Hebrew. Crucially, these weren't random sounds. They were full sentences with perfect grammatical structure. Sarah knew she had to find answers, and she went straight to the experts. The Hebrew University of Jerusalem, home to one of the world's most prestigious Semitic languages departments. On December 20th, 2022, Sarah took David to the Institute of Ancient Languages. Dr. Rachel Cohen, a 30-year specialist in biblical Aramaic, agreed to a quick assessment. She probably expected invented words or mispronounced Hebrew. But when David entered her office, she was left utterly stunned. The boy walked directly toward a shelf of ancient manuscripts. His small finger pointed to a 2nd century CE papyrus, and he pronounced clearly, Hanaktava Kadisha. This is the sacred book. Dr. Cohen's legs felt weak. That exact phrase was indeed written on that papyrus, but it was impossible for David to know it. The manuscript had never been publicly translated. Only 3 people in the world could read it. Where did you learn those words? She asked in Hebrew. David looked up with his big brown eyes and replied in perfect Aramaic, Analika Minyoma Diwalit. I have known you since the day you were born." The subsequent linguistic analysis was unnerving. David wasn't just speaking Aramaic. He spoke the specific first-century Galilean dialect, the same one Jesus of Nazareth would have used. The question haunting Dr. Cohen was terrifyingly simple. How could a 4-year-old master a language that had been completely extinct for 15 centuries? The news of young David spread like wildfire through Jerusalem's academic circles, leaving linguists, theologians, and archaeologists grappling with unanswerable questions. The journey to Capernaum. But David had an answer, and it was about to change everything. One cold January morning, he told his mother in Aramaic, "I want to go home." "Home?" "But sweetie, we are home." David shook his head with maturity beyond his years. "Beta, Davi, to my father's house." For 3 weeks, David insisted on finding his father's house. He drew strange maps and described mountains and lakes he had never seen. His descriptions were so detailed and precise that Sarah started cross-referencing them. They matched the geography of Galilee, specifically the area surrounding Capernaum, an ancient fishing town on the Sea of Galilee. On February 15th, 2023, Sarah made the most important decision of her life. She bought plane tickets to Tiberias, the city closest to Capernaum. The flight was barely 45 minutes, but as the small plane began its descent over the Sea of Galilee, something extraordinary happened. David pressed his face to the window and started crying, not tears of sadness, but of overwhelming, profound emotion. "Lamed Galila," he whispered, his voice broken. "The Sea of Galilee." As the small plane descended over the Sea of Galilee, David was suddenly overwhelmed. He pressed his face against the window and began to sob, but not from sadness. It was a deep, heart-wrenching recognition. "Lamed Galila," he whispered, his voice catching. "A Sea of Galilee." When they landed in Tiberias, David did something that truly baffled Sarah. The boy, who had never left Jerusalem or seen a photo of Galilee, walked directly to a specific taxi. He told the elderly driver, Moshe, in Hebrew, to Capernaum. Moshe looked at Sarah, surprised. "Does your son know the ancient name of Capernaum?" Sarah had no answer, as she didn't know it herself. During the 20-minute drive, David pointed out specific landmarks, naming them in Aramaic with a chilling familiarity. It was as if he'd traveled these roads 1,000 times. The hidden location, but the most impactful revelation, was yet to come. Once they reached Capernaum, David ran toward the ruins of the ancient synagogue as if it were his own backyard. His small feet moved with a natural certainty. Sarah followed, recording everything on her phone. What she captured that afternoon would allegedly change biblical archaeology forever. David stopped at a seemingly unremarkable stone wall, precisely 47 meters east of the main synagogue. Later measurements would confirm this minute precision. "It's hidden here," he said in Aramaic, tapping the stones with his hands. "Quiba de Kale, the Book of Life?" Sarah was bewildered. What or who was hidden there? David was already pointing with surgical precision. 4 stones down, 7 to the right, and 2.5 meters deep. The coordinates were recorded. Latitude 32.8195, longitude 35.05630, depth 2.5 meters. Sarah immediately contacted Dr. Yigael Yadin 11, the director of the archaeology department at Tel Aviv University. "Please come. My son says something is buried here." Dr. Yadin arrived 3 days later, driven more by academic curiosity than actual expectation. "Mrs. Goldstein," he reportedly said, "we've been excavating Capernaum for 40 years. Every square meter has been studied." Yet David's conviction was so intense it disturbed all the adults present. The impossible scroll. The excavation began on February 20th. At 1.8 meters down, a junior archaeologist's shovel struck something solid, not rock, but pottery. Dr. Yadin later claimed that in his 4 decades of work, he'd never experienced anything like it. It was as if the child possessed an invisible map of Capernaum's buried treasures. When they opened the parchment, the archaeologists were speechless. It was a first-century Aramaic text written in a script similar to the Dead Sea Scrolls. The content was beyond anything they had imagined. The voice in the night. While the archaeologists analyzed the Capernaum scroll, something far more disturbing began happening in Sarah and David's hotel room in Tiberias. Every night, precisely at 3:33 a.m., David would start talking in his sleep. These weren't typical sleep-talking ramblings. They were complete conversations in Aramaic. And most chillingly, he seemed to be responding to someone. Sarah decided to record these nocturnal dialogues. What she captured over 7 consecutive nights defied all logic. In the third night's recording, David clearly says, "Ken, more, Aina Yada." "Yes, master, I know." He then paused in silence for 23 seconds, as if listening to a reply. He continued, "Taladaya Lamhanin Lay. The disciples do not believe me." Sarah sent the recordings to Dr. Amit Gorin, a forensic audio analysis specialist at Ben Gurion University. His response arrived 3 days later with a shocking note. "Mrs. Goldstein, I need to see you urgently. There is something in these recordings that defies all logic." In his lab, Dr. Gorin played the recordings using specialized equipment that filtered frequencies inaudible to the human ear. "Look at this," he said, pointing to the sound waves. "Here is David's voice at a normal frequency. But observe this. He adjusted the parameters, and additional waves appeared. There was a second voice, a deeper adult voice responding in perfect Aramaic. It's impossible," Gorin stated. "In the normal audio, you hear nothing during those 23 seconds of silence. The second voice exists, but it's in a frequency that David's 4-year-old larynx physically cannot produce." Dr. Gorin played the filtered conversation. The adult voice was clear, paternal, and tender. "Ana Barekyat Khan, Yalda Kadisha. I bless you, holy child." But the most shocking revelation came from analyzing the content. David wasn't just talking to someone. He was receiving precise instructions about something that would change history forever. In the recording from the 5th night, David uttered words that chilled everyone who heard them. In the 5th night's chilling sleep recording, David pronounced a prophecy. "Barba Injamin Batrad Malkuda, Galea Rabba Ni Ru. In 40 days, in the place of the kingdom, there will be a great revelation." When Dr. Gorin translated the full phrase for Sarah, her world reeled. The prophecy was specific, testable, and had a deadline, 40 days from that night, placing the event on April 2nd, 2023. But David didn't stop at the date. In the same nocturnal conversation, he provided exact coordinates. Tladin Darjin Min Men Taba Mingan Tad Zaytuna, 32 degrees from the holy city to the west of the Mount of Olives. Mathematical calculations pinpointed a specific spot in the Judean desert, exactly 47.3 kilometers southeast of Jerusalem. According to David, this was the place where the secret of secrets would be revealed, betting on a child's word. Despite his skepticism following the Capernaum find, Dr. Yadin decided to stake his academic reputation. "If this child can accurately predict another major archaeological discovery," he declared, "then we are facing something that defies all scientific understanding." An expedition was quickly organized for April 2nd, 2023, involving archaeologists from 3 universities, ancient language specialists, film crews, and of course, David and his mother. During the 33-day wait, David continued providing unnervingly detailed specifications for what they would find. A subterranean chamber 4.2 meters deep, sealed with the sign of the fish. Inside, 7 jars of consecrated oil and a scroll containing words the master never wrote, but dictated. His precision was terrifying. He drew maps of the underground chamber, described the symbols etched on the jars, and even specified the type of script on the scroll, Quetaf Ibri Attic, ancient Hebrew script. On April 1st, the day before the prophecy was due, David made an unexpected statement. "Tomorrow, when they find the master's words, you will understand why I returned. Time is running out. The deep discovery at 6 a.m. on April 2nd. The excavators started digging at the precise coordinates David had given. At 2:47 p.m. that day, everything changed. At exactly 4.17 meters deep, only 3 centimeters off David's 4.2 meters prediction, the excavators hit solid stone. It was a subterranean chamber, sealed exactly as David had described. The entrance was marked with the primitive Christian symbol of the fish, carved into 1st century limestone. Inside the chamber lay 7 perfectly preserved oil jars and a parchment scroll wrapped in white linen. When Dr. Yadin opened the main scroll, he was left utterly speechless. The text was written in Aramaic and Koine Greek, dated to 33 CE. It was no ordinary document. It was a personal letter addressed to those who will come later when the time is fulfilled. The complete translation of the first paragraph sent a shiver down everyone's spine. I, Yeshua ben Joseph, leave these words for the child who will carry my spirit when the world needs it most. He will be small in age, but great in wisdom. He will speak with my voice and remember my ways. His mission will be to prepare hearts for what is coming. Sarah felt weak. The parchment specifically spoke of a child who would speak Aramaic, recall unvisited places, and guide others to buried truths. The impossible match. The second paragraph was even more shocking. It detailed the child's identity. The chosen child will be born in the city of peace during times of great global confusion. He will be 4 years old when his memory awakens, and his mother will be named after the princess of our people. Sarah means princess in Hebrew. David was exactly 4 years old when he started speaking Aramaic, and he was born in Jerusalem, the city of peace. The coincidence was statistically impossible. The scroll also provided coordinates for other locations where truths await revelation, specific spots in Nazareth, Bethany, and Jericho, where David would supposedly find the treasures that complete his mission. Dr. Yadin, after 40 years of archaeological rigor, made the unbelievable statement: either we are witnessing the most elaborate fraud in history, or something that truly defies all scientific and theological comprehension. David, silent throughout the excavation, finally spoke. Ana lidib lemidris. Ana edet lada. Sinan. I did not come to teach. I came for redemption. Amen. His words echoed across the silent desert, a voice from the distant past suddenly present. The Italian skeptic, what happened 3 days later, on April 5, 2023, was even more extraordinary. Dr. Marcus Benedetti, an Italian archaeologist and 1st century manuscript specialist, flew in from Rome. He was a notorious skeptic, famous for scientifically dismantling archaeological hoaxes. When he walked into the hotel room where David was quietly playing with plastic soldiers, something inexplicable occurred. David looked up, his eyes filling with tears of recognition. Shimon Barona, he whispered in Aramaic, his voice unnaturally mature. You who denied me 3 times, Dr. Benedetti froze. Shimon Barona was the original Aramaic name for the Apostle Peter. How could a 4-year-old know such a specific theological reference? How? How do you know that name? The archaeologist stammered in Italian. David replied in perfect Aramaic, his voice now carrying a profound, blood-chilling emotional depth. You wrote to me 3 times, and 3 times I forgave you. Benedetti felt the room tilt. He had been privately studying 3 letters attributed to Peter that mentioned episodes of deep repentance information only he knew. Which letters? He asked, his voice shaking. David approached and took the archaeologist's hand with his small fingers. The letters you keep in the blue box, in the 3rd drawer of your desk in Rome. The ones you found in Antioch, but never dared to publish because no one would believe you. Dr. Benedetti began to tremble. That was exactly where he kept those manuscripts. It was information literally no one else in the world could have known. Dr. Benedetti was trembling. It was exactly where he kept those secret manuscripts. This was information literally no one else in the world could know. But David wasn't finished. With a heartbreaking tenderness, he told the shocked archaeologist, "Your doubts are not a sin, Marcus. Your search for truth is your way of praying. I have returned so you may know your work has purpose." Dr. Benedetti, a 58-year-old man who had dedicated his life to rigid science, knelt before the 4-year-old and wept uncontrollably. In that moment, everyone present understood that this was far beyond a psychological phenomenon or a statistical coincidence. It was something profoundly deeper. The continuing mission. 5 months have passed since the extraordinary events in the Judean desert, and the ripples continue to shake the foundations of archaeology, theology, and our very understanding of human existence. David Goldstein, now 5, silently continues his mission. Since April 2023, he has guided archaeologists to 7 more shocking discoveries across the Holy Land, each location confirmed with chilling precision. In Nazareth, he pointed out the ruins of a 1st-century house where, he claimed, the carpenter kept his sacred tools. Excavation revealed a workshop with perfectly preserved carpentry instruments and an Aramaic inscription. Joseph Barkov, builder of holy things. In Bethany, David led researchers to a burial chamber where, in his words, Lazarus waited 4 days before the miracle. Inside, they found an empty sarcophagus with inscriptions aligning perfectly with the gospel accounts. The global phenomenon, but perhaps the most disturbing revelation, is the global scale of the David Goldstein phenomenon. His case is not unique. Over the last 4 months, 23 similar cases have been reported across 5 continents. Children aged 3 to 7 who, following traumatic experiences, begin speaking extinct languages and demonstrate impossible knowledge of ancient civilizations. In Peru, a 4-year-old girl speaks classical Quechua and has led archaeologists to undocumented Inca ruins. In Egypt, a 6-year-old boy converses in spoken hieroglyphics and has located 3 lost pharaonic tombs. In India, a 5-year-old girl recites Sanskrit texts previously believed to only exist in 1,000-year-old destroyed manuscripts. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a neuropsychologist at the University of Barcelona, who has studied 12 of these cases, reached a revolutionary conclusion. We are facing a global phenomenon suggesting that human consciousness can access memories that transcend linear time. What does this mean for us? Are we witnessing the dawn of a new stage in human evolution, or the return of something ancient that never truly left? David Goldstein taught us that the lines between past and present, between possible and impossible, are far thinner than we ever believed. His story reminds us that some mysteries don't need a scientific explanation. They only need faith. The unthinkable prophecy. The story ends with a final, chilling piece of information that investigators kept secret for months until recent events forced their hand. On August 15, 2023, 4 months after the desert discovery, David woke up at 3:33 a.m. with a terror that overwhelmed his mother. Emma Kellerman, "Mom, time is up." Sarah found him sitting in bed, eyes wide and glassy, looking at something she couldn't see. "What time, darling? What are you talking about?" David looked at her with a chilling seriousness and pronounced in perfect Aramaic words Sarah immediately recorded, sensing their importance. "Bilomadar Wisrinaria, Detisharin Kednaya, Noramin Shmaya Netatadisha Netka Telnacula Nesawa." On the 24th day of the 1st month of autumn, fire will descend from the sky. The holy place will be shaken, and the whole world will tremble. Sarah realized the 1st month of autumn in the Hebrew calendar is Tishrei. The 24th of Tishrei in 2023 corresponded exactly to October 7th. But David didn't stop there. With a precision that would paralyze international analysts weeks later, he continued. "Mindrum Minerbaya, Kravanetter, Alpek Warpme, Nerain Biomakid, Edap, Alma Laken Lamshanel." From the south and from the west, the war will begin. Thousands and hundreds will be killed in a single day, and then the world will not be able to stop it. Sarah didn't fully understand the Aramaic, but the words krava, war, and Neren, will be killed, terrified her. She immediately contacted Dr. Yadin, who arrived that same morning with specialized translators. The full translation of David's prophecy was devastating. It described, with frightening accuracy, events that would occur exactly 53 days later: an attack from the south, Gaza, a response from the west, Israel, and thousands dead in the first hours. Dr. Yadin made the hardest decision of his career, sending a confidential report to Israeli authorities on August 20th. The report was filed away as unverifiable information from an unreliable source. On October 7th, 2023, at 6:30 a.m., exactly what David had prophesied began. But that was not the most terrifying part of his vision. The most terrifying part was what he said would happen next.